Namjoon Pike and I had premiered in Europe his topless opera Sextronic. We'd had no trouble. There was no problem with any nudity whatsoever. I have to tell you that in Germany, where we played the piece, they looked at us and they either liked it or they didn't like the piece. It didn't bother them that I was half nude. Well, Pike decided we would do it in New York in February of 1967. I'm going into my own personal career at this point because it seriously affected the festivals from that point on. I was known as the topless cellist. I had incredible trouble getting permits, and I mean, to get the public spaces to begin with, they think you're crazy. If you're the topless cellist that's been convicted on nudity charges, secondly, then you really are going to have trouble. My next festival, I had decided I wanted the Staten Island Ferry. I love that ferry boat. I don't know how you feel, but I love that ride. And naturally, I chose the grandest one. I got the large one, the John F. Kennedy, because it had to have all of our artists on it, and it had to be a good ship. I couldn't take one of the little dinky ones. So that's what I've been working on. That was my idea for the fifth festival. And I went back to Europe with Pike after this Central Park Festival in '66, and we did our pieces, and it was a big success, and it was great and everything. Well, we had some wild stories. We had a few problems, but I won't go into my personal career problems there. Where I'm going to do it now is with the topless case, because it was such a trauma, such a tragedy, that it's something I'll never get over. I think it was terribly unfair. I'll never do the opera Sextronic topless piece totally for New York because I don't think they deserve it. They stopped me in the middle of the performance. What happened is that we had decided to do it in New York, and we called our lawyer, Jerry Ordover. It was his birthday dinner, and we said, Jerry, is there any problem in doing this piece legally? Because there are police around. He said, what do you mean there are police around? I said, they're here. We're rehearsing here at the Filmmaker Cinematheque, and there are police here. He said, no, as long as you don't fornicate on the stage, you're okay. Well, that wasn't part of the piece, so we were okay. So, well, there are some pieces that have that in it, but this piece didn't. So I found out that the police were there. I was curious, well, why were they there? We were not used to having them there when we rehearsed. And the reason they'd come to the Filmmaker Cinematheque was it was a raided premises because of Jack Smith's Flaming Creature film. It had been confiscated in that theater. That was considered lewd and obscene, and therefore the police had to come back on a regular basis and raid the premise. So they came there and they found this Oriental guy, Namjoon Pike, and this string player, Charlotte Moorman, and they called in headquarters and they said, what do we do? This woman's half naked, and this Oriental guy is running around with all these electronics, and they said, well, stick around and see what happens. Now, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know that they were told to stick around or anything, because we called our lawyer and everything. Actually, we called Billy Kluver. And we said, help, what do we do? And Billy Kluver, who's the director of 9 Evenings, very important in the EAT, Art and Technology Movement, he advised us, and because just seeing the police scared me, and I wanted to know, so I called a few important people. They told us not to worry, that the Ballet African had performed in Manhattan a few weeks before, and they had been able to perform topless. It was their native costume, or no costume, whichever way you look at it, and we were okay. So we started our performance, and lo and behold, the police stopped us. And they took me off to jail. And this was pretty awful. I'd never been arrested in my life, and the women that I was put in prison with, one had murdered her husband, and she kept banging her head against the bars, and she kept saying, I hope he's dead, the son of a bitch. I hope he's dead. It seemed she had stabbed him. And another woman was brought in for prostitution. Another woman was brought in for dope. She had broken into a drugstore for dope. Another woman had been brought in for stealing because she just liked to steal things. And then they turned on me and they said, what did you do? I said, well, I played the cello partially nude. And they said, what's a cello? And it was awful. Like this one woman tried to pull my hair out. And oh, the search they put you through. It is so terrible. And fortunately, I was having my menstrual period, so I bled all over the woman. But what they do is they search your anus, they search your vagina for drugs, I guess. I don't know why they do it, and I just bled all over her. And they don't let you have your own Kotex, your own Tampax or whatever. They furnish you with, and the search was kind of funny, if you can find anything funny about that whole situation. They said, stripped from your waist down. Well, since the third part of Opera Sextronique, if they had let Nam June Paik and I continue, the first part was with the electric bikini and the blinkers. The second part was topless with a long formal skirt. The third part was bottomless with the football jersey and the helmet. And the fourth part was totally nude behind a bomb. So I had to be ready for those next two arias. So all I had on was the long skirt. So when she said strip from the waist down, and this is a cold February night with 13 inches of snow on the ground, I just undid my skirt and I was naked from the waist down. So that took them back a little bit. And this is in front of the other prisoners. Then, women prisoners. Then they make you bend over and everything, and they search your rear end and all, and which is just very humiliating. Then she says, okay, strip from the waist up. Well, I was already topless because that's how they found me. And at least I had put on a jacket, so I took off the jacket, and there I was, totally nude. And they thought this was a little bit unusual, lack of clothes for a February storm night of 13 inches of snow. Well, the trial went on 4 days after this. We ended up with a lawyer that Jack Kroll, the cultural editor of Newsweek, senior editor of Newsweek, got for us, Ernst Rosenberger, who is now a judge. And Ernst Rosenberger had defended Lenny Bruce, and he knew a little bit about the obscenity law, and he tried his best for us, but still, I'm a convict. I was convicted. But what happened as a result of that is that Old Calcutta, hair, some pretty important things were allowed to happen in New York City, and it became a law then that you could have willful partial nudity in an artwork, whereas it had been a law before that that you couldn't have, and none of us knew that. No, and even at the end of the case, Anna Halpern came in with her fantastic dancers and danced at Hunter College, nude, totally nude, the men and the women. And Clive Barnes had reviewed that, and Frank saw that, so he called Clive Barnes, and the last day of my trial, Clive Barnes came in and testified that he had indeed reviewed the Anna Halpern dancers, and it was a liberating experience, and it was beautiful art. But it didn't help me. I was still convicted, but I did help the law in New York State. Well, as far as getting my festivals in,
so one point, in some ways, that case was instrumental in removing censorship from the arts totally, because I think that led to a lot of precedent.
It was the precedent case, and it did change the law. Yeah. Whereas the law had clearly stated you could not have willful nudity of any kind, partial or total. You couldn't have any nudity. Now, when you walk down Times Square, I don't know if you think that what happened is so good or not. In the name of research, I love to go to the topless bars and everything and see what's going on. And like on my birthday, I get Frank to take me to see the topless bars and all the porno shops and everything. I like to see what's going on. And I don't know that it's so good that we've opened up and everything has become so liberal. I don't mind it as long as it doesn't harm other women and other men. I don't know about that, because I really cared about the art end of it. And what these massage parlors and pornographic stores have done is they've extended that definition of art into their multi-million-dollar money-making porno shops. So, and had my case not have changed the law to begin with, there would be no way for them to be existing. So we've got the good and we've got the bad with this new law. But now with me privately, my grandmother had a heart attack, because this was first page. I don't know where you were in 1967, but that was front page news in Europe and America. Now nobody could care less. But in those days, that was a big story, that this topless cellist. And it seems that one of the things that offended people the most was my classical background and a cellist being partially nude. Dancers, other people, somehow it's okay, but a cellist, a classical cellist being partially nude, It really offended them in so many ways that I don't know, but it affected my family severely, affected me severely, affected my concert dates. Not in Europe. Europe had seen the piece already and had seen me nude many times and decided if what we were doing was good or bad. And it didn't bother them, the costume or not having a costume. It's this kind of